Net worth, money, coins. This is what every Skyblock player dreams about when they go to sleep. Don't lie to me. I know exactly what you've been doing when you sleep. You've been dreaming about that new Hyperion, full tier 7 enchants, perfect gems, book of stats, art of war, and it keeps getting better and better until you wake up and you realize you're broke. You ain't got no money, you got like 3 million bank. So today I'm here to change that. I'm going to teach you how to set up this new overpowered farm and give you every little trick and tip that I learned so you can start swimming in that sweet, sweet cash. So stay tuned throughout the whole video because it's gonna be a long one. Let me take you on a trip on how I discovered probably the most overpowered moneymaker in the game. But before that, let me introduce you to today's sponsor, Opera GX. I've been using this browser for well over 3 years now. It is hands down the best browser for a gamer. Opera provides you with a whole sidebar where you can organize all your social media and chatting apps like Discord and WhatsApp to make sure you don't miss those one-in-a-month occasions of your friend texting you. The sidebar also supports your favorite music players like Spotify, Apple, or YouTube Music without the need of a tab or another app. It even conveniently pauses your music whenever you're watching videos. Tired of running 20 FPS in dungeons? Well, maybe you're allowing your Google Chrome with 17 tabs open hog a little too much of that performance. Worry not, Opera has you covered. Introducing GX Control. Manage your tabs, your CPU, RAM to make sure that Opera takes as little of your resources as possible. Hell, it even has a network limiter to make sure you're never to blame for the flawless performance of Hypixel service. And yes, I know that switching browsers can be annoying, but Opera does a great job of providing you with tools to import all of your data from your previous browsers to make sure the switch is as seamless as possible. And yes, of course, it also supports Google Chrome extensions. Opera also has a mobile app where you can sync all of your browser data with your phone, so if you're fully ready to commit to Opera, feel free to check that out. Click my link in the video description or the pinned comment below to get started with Opera GX, and thank you so much for sponsoring this video. Let's continue. Everything started with the announcement of Tier 5 Kudra. Players were excited. A new challenge, arguably hardest content in the game. Me? Well, I was excited, but at the same time, terrified. To max out Kudra collection, I would need around 1000 Tier 5 completions. This might sound like a lot of runs, but your average run is looking to be around 3 minutes long, so it's not that big of a grind. But what most people don't realize is that the issue here is not the 1000 runs, it's the 1000 keys. You see, Infernal Key costs around 2.4 million coins. Of course, this depends on your reputation. The more you have, the cheaper the key, but then you need 120 enchanted red sand or mycelium. And then of course the 2 nether stars. Nether stars are probably the easiest part of the grind. Grinding all the 2000 nether stars would probably take around 30 hours. Grinding 2.4 billion coins on the other hand is a lot of a different story. Even months prior to the announcement of the update, I have started grinding all the coins needed. Now, personally, I'm a Ruby enjoyer. I've mined Ruby for about 2 billion collection. Is that it? There it is. Chat. There it is. 2 bill. Cool milestone, nah? Pretty cool, pretty cool. Not bad. But I simply have gotten tired of listening to people making 50 to 80% more of what I'm making with Armadillo because I have high ping and Ruby mining is extremely ping dependent. So after months, I have finally gave in and decided to try out Armadillo mining myself. And to give out my honest opinion, I think Armadillo mining can be a lot of fun. It's really easy to learn, but takes time to master. But right after I got started, I was already making 35 to 38 million coins an hour compared to the 27 million coins I was doing with Ruby. Now, of course, there's a lot of downtime trying to get a monument that is not taken, dealing with griefers, longer setup times. But overall, after a couple of days of doing it, I fully decided that this is what I was gonna commit to because it was a lot faster. At the time, I was also working on maxing out some new armor sets and I needed more perfect Jaspers and Ruby, so I was doing some nucleus runs when this happened. Oh my god! Chad, we just dropped a claw! That's my first claw and 650 runs! Yeah, I finally got a quick claw, and after careful consideration, I decided to put it on the Armadillo. After a couple days of practice and having the max setup for the Armadillo, my money per hour reached over 44 million. A couple days later, making 300 to 400 million coins a day, my purse was ready for the 2.4 billion coin investment, and the last thing left was the red sand, or that's what I thought. I did some math. For 1000 keys, I needed around 19.2 million red sand, and at the rate that I was mining it, it was gonna take around 155 hours. That's a huge problem, okay? I didn't want to spend the next 3 weeks mining red sand all day, so I was forced to do some research. Red sand doesn't really have any interesting tricks to make it go faster, but Mycelium had an option. A little trick that could possibly save tens of hours. Of course, I was very hesitant switching to Mycelium instead of red sand, as I was Barbarian faction at the time, and switching to a new one, grinding the 12,000 reputation again can be really annoying and also takes really long. My solution to this was quite simple. Just get both factions to 12,000 reputation and be able to switch between without any issues. The way reputation works in the game is if you gain 1 Barbarian reputation, you lose 1 Mage reputation, and you cannot go below minus 3,000 reputation in either faction. You most likely experienced this when switching from one faction to another. You find yourself being minus 3,000 reputation in your new faction. So what if we grinded 27,000 reputation in one faction? We can then switch and we will be at minus 3,000 reputation on our new faction. But we still have the 27,000 on our previous one, which means now we can just grind all the way from minus 3,000 to 12,000, which will lose us 15,000 reputation on our previous faction, leaving us with 12,000. And here we are, max reputation in both. Now, of course, having only 12,000 in both is annoying. If you kill a mini boss, one faction gains reputation and the other loses some, so you have to leave a buffer of reputation that you can keep juggling. So that's what I did for the next 2 months, grinding 40,000 reputation to get both factions maxed. So exactly 27.5, but like how perfect. Totally planned too, like everything is just perfect. 27.5k. But there we go. 12.5k rep. Perfectly. Oh my goodness, and 12k mage. But how clean that is. I love that. Also, just letting you guys know that code HsFearless is finally a thing. So if you're making purchases on the Hypixel store, make sure to use my code. You know, it helps me out a little bit. January's not gonna lie, it's been a rough month. It would really help me out. I also own a HsFearless creator code. Hook yourself up with some of these goofy emotes, like you know, the worm and the rock around like in the world like this. Well, hey, be my guest. I'd really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the video. So once that problem was solved and I was able to buy Infernal Kudra keys with Mycelium, I started doing some more research. I looked over the leaderboards of Mycelium collection and I found the top people that are competing for it. One of them was even in my stream and I got the numbers. My main hope were minions. Maybe I can just place down 31 minions and get Mycelium that way, but with the numbers that I got, it was gonna take months. Like, I mean, months of having Mycelium minions down. And I'd rather use the minion slots to progress my chili pepper collection. For the longest time, I kept hearing this strategy, this revolutionary idea of zapping the Mycelium on my island with a special farm. The problem was that I wasn't really impressed by the Mycelium rates from the people that told me about the farm. It was pretty much the same rates as manual shoveling, but you didn't gain any collection while doing it, which isn't too big of a deal, but I enjoy numbers and I think high collections are really cool, so I didn't really consider it as an option. But while being on the person's island, I thought I would bring it up and I would double check what the rates were. He said he can do a quick test for me and let me know about it, and let me tell you, after 20 minutes, the results he got were game changing. With those numbers, the Zapper farm could very well save me over 80 hours. Almost half the time it would take me to farm the red sand, and that's including the time to build the farm. I did some more fact checking and research, learned the vanilla Mycelium mechanics, and I was convinced that this was my solution to the problem. I looked up some tutorials on YouTube on how to build one of these farms, and I could only really find one video. It was a decent start. I started building the farm, gathering the glowstone from my light source, and shoveling the Mycelium from Crimson Isles. Building a layer was pretty easy once I had a couple. I started farming the actual farm for the Mycelium. because it was faster. And as expected, it was insane. The mycelium rates were impeccable. Okay, Fearless, but if you looked up the tutorial, why are you making this video to teach us about a farm that is not your idea, not your design, and you're just teaching us what the other person did in his tutorial? And you see, that would be a very good point, but I'm here because in the process of building the farm and farming it for over 80 hours, I have discovered tricks and optimized this to the point where this farm with the current mycelium prices makes over 20 million coins an hour. And no other tutorial covers this so in depth. So let's start with the basic idea of the farm to make sure you understand the mechanics. If a mycelium block within the bounds of a dirt block is either 3 blocks above or next to the dirt, it will slowly spread and convert the dirt into mycelium. If the light source is sufficient, of course, that's why the farm needs glowstone. It requires light to spread. The block zapper can zap blocks on your island placed by you to a maximum of 164 blocks with one zap. Now, because you placed the dirt that was then turned into mycelium, you still technically placed the block so you can zap it. And after 20 zaps, the block zapper goes on a cooldown before you can zap again. Now, this cooldown is long and is not worth waiting, but if you reload your island, meaning you leave the island with no other players on it, after around 7 seconds, it will reload and you can join it again, and this refreshes the cooldown and you have another 20 zaps. After around 7 seconds, it will reload and you can join it again, and this refreshes the zapper cooldown, meaning that we can tune down the zapper cooldown to 7 seconds. So the idea of the farm is to make rows of 164 blocks of dirt that will then get turned into mycelium by vanilla mechanics with mycelium next to it, and then we zap it. After 20 rows, we leave our island and rejoin it 7 seconds later, repeating the process infinitely. Most people who make one of these farms farm it from the very end of the farm, which is where I ran into my first issue. You see, if you're on one end of the farm, you can only load 60% of the farm, because the chunks on the other end aren't loaded for the mycelium to spread. That was an easy fix though, as you can just farm in the middle of the farm instead. And this loaded the entire farm and fixed the problem. This was fine until I went through the farm for around an hour and realized how inconvenient this whole thing is. You need a lot of speed for it to be fast, and you need to keep crouching and sprinting across every lane of mycelium, and God forbid you will misclick on the wrong row and zap the wrong lane of dirt that hasn't turned into mycelium yet, and then disasters happen. We needed to improve the design to be more AFK and foolproof so we can watch videos while doing this. The block zapper cannot zap a couple blocks in the game, like crafting tables, chests, and other things that open up an inventory when right-clicked, but it also doesn't zap prismarine blocks. I'm guessing it's because it's the same block as mithril and it has to do something with that, but we use this to our advantage and we put a prismarine block in between every lane. This way, you can't accidentally misclick on the wrong row. Why prismarine, you ask? Well, because right-clicking the prismarine block doesn't open a new GUI that would then have to exit. So this perfectly solves the problem, but you still had to keep sprinting and shifting across every lane, and that was a big problem. Lots of strain on your pinky finger. Thankfully, we discovered that glass panes exist. These do not block the mycelium farm from spreading if placed on top of the block, and you can also zap blocks underneath the glass pane, which is exactly what we needed. Why, you may ask? Well, now we can use a mod that allows us to toggle sneak. Now yes, toggle sneak is allowed like toggle sprint is, as long as it unsneaks every time you open up an inventory interface, because most toggle sneak mods, they keep you crouched even while in your inventory, and that is the feature that is not allowed. That's called inventory walking. If you're looking for toggle sneak mod that I use, it's in the Google Doc in the description with the rest of my mods. Now with toggle sneak, we can just walk across the panes in between the prismarine blocks without having to touch our shift key at all, making this progress so much better. You have no idea. This is revolutionary, okay? And for the most part, this is the whole farm, except that I have a good friend Soupy that has made his own mod and is capable of adding new features to it. So I came to him with a request to add a feature that every time my block zapper goes on cooldown, it prompts me with a message on screen saying I should warp the hub, and then when I do, after 7 seconds, it tells me when to warp back to my island. Huge props to Soupy for this feature, because now the farm is so AFK, you can watch your favorite streamer while farming it. HsFearless on Twitch. I stream Skyblock every day. Come watch me, please. I really need viewers. The way you get Soupy is also listed in the Google Doc if you want the block zapper feature, so make sure to check that out. Sadly, it is a chat triggers module, so you're gonna have to say goodbye to your frames if you want to use the module. Now, for the thing that you all came here for, how do you build the farm? The very bottom of the farm can be any block. You build a layer of dirt that is 164 blocks long facing north or south, and no more than 81 blocks long facing east or west. Then you build another layer of mycelium on top of the dirt, and this is the part why you want to have it facing north or south. The zapper prioritizes the blocks facing those directions, meaning you can stand on one end of the layer and zap a whole row, zapping every other row and leaving to the hub, and the zapper goes on cooldown and repeating the process. Once you have your alternating rows of mycelium, skip a block and place a layer of glowstone. This will be our light source. You can use lanterns if you wish. For me, as an Ironman, glowstone was easier to come by, and after this, the layer is done. Now just repeat the process. A layer of dirt, another layer of mycelium on top, zap every other row, skip a block, place a layer of glowstone, repeat. The end goal is for your farm to look like this. Once you have around 500 zappable rows of mycelium, which are these bottom rows here, the farm becomes around 92% infinite, which means there is an 8% chance that every time you're zapping a row of mycelium, the full row might not have regenerated fully, and you won't get the full 164 blocks. You might get less depending on how many mycelium blocks are connected, of course. And if the middle block is still dirt, try to skip the row and go to the next one. Zapping the dirt will have big consequences and will destroy the farm. There is an easy fix though. Make sure you do not have dirt in your personal deleter and just left click the zapper, undoing the dirt zap. Now, the more layers of farm you build, the more infinite the farm becomes. I only built 500 zappable rows. You can do as many as you wish. Here's the full process of what it looks like farming this thing. You zap the mycelium, aim for the dirt block below the prismarine with a builder's wand for a whole new row of dirt to be built. Go to the next row and repeat. Once you finish 20 zaps, have a keybind to set island spawn and go back to the hub. Once 7 seconds pass, you go back to the island and repeat the process. Ether warp is really nice for this because you can just warp to the next layer, but if you don't have one, you can just farm from top to bottom, dropping down to the next layer, and have a teleport pad that brings you all the way back up to the start of the farm once you finish it, and repeat. The farm takes around 6 hours to build if you buy the resources from the bazaar. For Ironman players, it takes around 10 hours. I'm not sure about the total cost of the farm, but it's not too expensive. And all you need is a block zapper and a builder's wand, and the most difficult requirement is you need the combat 24 to enter Crimson Isles, and then use a regular shovel to unlock the enchanted mycelium recipe from the collection to make your life so much easier. The farm does not gain you any collection, and the snail pet does not work because you're not actually breaking the blocks yourself, and also you're the one who placed the block in the first place, so the fortune wouldn't even apply if you did break the block. The only thing this farm does is make 20 million coins an hour or gets you a lot of mycelium in a short amount of time. Now trust me, I know the mycelium prices will drop after this video because a lot of you might want to make this farm, as it's literally the lowest requirement method to make a lot of money. But keep an eye out on the mycelium prices yourself. Currently a stack is 650k and you can get around 30 to 32 stacks an hour, so just calculate how much profit you'd be making and judge if this is worth yourself. It's quite AFK and you can easily watch movies while doing it, and if you do this for around 80 hours, you might even be able to expect a result like this. I think we are done. So let's make the count. 8, 11, 13, 14, 17, 23, 26, 29. 32, 33, 34. There it is, chat. We are done. We are at 19.21 out of 19.2. The 10k over, chat. We're done. Yeah, this is around 1.2 billion coins worth of mycelium, which at the end of the day is only 1/3 of the grind to get all the keys for 1000 Infernal Kudra runs. Don't we just all love the Iron Man game mode? Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and checking out my Twitch. I stream there every day, and I just wanted to apologize for the lack of uploads. I have been going through a little bit of a burnout lately, and hopefully that changes soon. Hopefully you had a great holiday season, and I will see you next time.